Gennady Vladimirovich, right at this very moment, I honestly feel like you could just turn on the iron, the air conditioner, or even the washing machine without any trouble at all. And even from there, you'd hear the news that Shoigu is preparing a coup against Putin. Maybe it sounds ironic coming from me, and on the one hand, I don't fully believe it. On the other hand, few people could have believed that Prigozhin would once march on Moscow, though that didn't turn out very well. Do you actually believe in what's happening? Do you believe that this is really happening? Or is this all just conspiracy theory?
Well, most likely it's conspiracy theory because that's not how a coup d'etat is prepared. They happen first, and then we find out about them. If we find out beforehand, then they don't happen. But when you brought up the example of Shoigu and Prigozhin, that's where my opinion differs from yours. Prigozhin, excuse my language, had guts, he had willpower, he had courage. It doesn't matter that he was our enemy, it doesn't matter that he was a criminal, we're just evaluating him objectively. Every person is a mix of everything. He had will, he had determination, he was quite brave. And what drove him was desperation. As they say, all the factors coincided here because the decision to liquidate Wagner had already been made. I might be mistaken about the timing, but it was around then. Not long after, in May, he tried to restore everything, tried to bring it all back. He was given hope, but then that hope turned out to be unrealistic. Putin ultimately chose Shoigu and Gerasimov, and so on and so forth. And so he went all in. He possessed extensive combat experience. He had many loyal people ready to fight for him. And he certainly had the physical strength required. Shoigu doesn't have any of that now. You see, Shoigu, when he seemed to do fairly well there, well, relatively well during his brief time as governor of the Moscow region, at least according to certain people, mainly the leadership of cities and municipal districts, who spoke well of him. But in the Ministry of Defense, I was told that Sergei Ivanov sat quietly, kept to himself, and didn't go anywhere, and generally speaking, Shoigu, he didn't really fit in there because he was an outsider. And in the Security Council, as I understand it, he doesn't really have the same authority as, for example, others did. Patrushev, who was, so to speak, one of their own through and through. But right now, I'm not taking that into account. Moral qualities.
Of course, I
understand. I'm just considering their influence purely. I have serious doubts about Sergei Shoigu. Maybe someone just decided to finally remove him from this position in this way. I also don't rule out that some kind of information and propaganda special operation is being carried out against Shoigu. Well, he's definitely overstayed his welcome, both as a minister and everywhere else, so to speak. There wouldn't be anything terribly wrong with sending him into full retirement, because previously the Security Council was kind of a pre-retirement post, a pre-retirement position, so that a person could quietly and gradually fade away into the mist and not be seen anymore. That's it. So, as for a coup, I don't know. Dimash Remezlo, Ilya Remezlo remain a mystery to me, as well as to many others. Because he couldn't have been unaware of the fate of Guten Strelkov, who was also in power, part of the authorities, together with the authorities. He was one of the main active figures and mechanisms at the start of the aggression against Ukraine, the coup in several cities, the creation of these proxies in the form of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, the so-called republics. Well, he's not a stupid man. I didn't see any signs of mental disorder or nervous breakdown in him. When he gave interviews, for example, to that same Sasha Plyushchov, I didn't see it. That's what I mean. So there must be something else going on there that we don't understand. But in any case, of course, this is a symptom of the contradictions and problems breaking through from within Putin's establishment. That's absolutely obvious. But a revolt, a coup, well, God willing.
God willing, as they say, God willing, regarding the story with
Alexander, I don't even know if we'll be able to drink as much in celebration as we should if something happens there and Putin is gone.
Gennady Vladimirovich, I think we'll still try. We'll give it a shot. But of course, we strongly encourage and advise our subscribers to consistently uphold and prioritize a healthy lifestyle in the exact same way that we strive to do ourselves, in principle.
Absolutely. See, I started coughing just like Putin.
Naturally. Friends, I want to say right away, yes, subscribe to the Union YouTube channel, because this is where you'll find verified facts and conversations with such interesting people as Gennady Vladimirovich Gudkov. Gennady, one more question. Look, You started talking about the differences, absolutely correct ones, between, for example, Shoigu and Prigozhin. Yes, I understand everything. I wanted to ask about one more person at this stage of the war. Nikolai Patrushev, you already mentioned him in passing. He was brought up today. Now, as far as I remember, he holds a purely symbolic position, assistant to the president, I think, of the Russian Federation. So basically just an assistant to Putin. But we remember what position Patrushev held for many years. But could he be that very gray eminence? Is there any lingering resentment toward Putin after he was essentially removed from his post?
Anyone can be a gray eminence, but only under certain circumstances. If you remember, in 1944, at the end of 1944 or the beginning of 1945, Himmler's people entered into negotiations with the Allies in order to get rid of Hitler and try to save at least part of the Germany they believed was worth saving. That is, when Trump brought the fleet to the shores of Venezuela, I am absolutely convinced that under such pressure, and with the realization of the regime's possible imminent end, than even Maduro himself, there were many people who could have become the gray eminences of any conspiracy from his closest circle. Of course, Patrushev is stronger and more influential than Shoigu, in my opinion, again in my unrefined opinion. But right now, under these circumstances, he can't do anything when Putin is being received by Trump. When Putin is communicating with Modi of India, when Putin is visiting Xi Jinping, when he is there, imposing his own terms in negotiations and so on. In these circumstances, no one from Putin's inner circle can now act as a gray cardinal because they have no allies in the West. They have no allies in the West. There's no situation where they perish together with the leader. Either they perish together with the leader or they get rid of the leader. As it was in Germany at the end of 1944, when everyone already understood that Hitler's days were numbered. Well, all normal, reasonable people did. That's why now anyone could play the role of Brutus, a sort of hypothetical Brutus, but only under certain circumstances, and those circumstances do not exist right now. That's why the rebellion is being postponed. At the very least, a palace coup is definitely being postponed for now, until it becomes clear how Putin's relationships with everyone else are shaping up.